Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Sorry, webinar session. Apologies. Okay, we'll just jump into the session straightforward. My name is Obi Adewale, and I am delighted to welcome you all to today's webinar titled Leadership Skills Needed to Influence, Challenge, and Drive Change Within Occupational Health and Safety. And I am honored to be your host for this crucial session. Firstly, I would like to extend a warm regards to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Aldo Sylvester. He is the current team lead of the OHS department at Chevron Consulting Limited, and he's graciously going to share his insights and expertise with us today. Mr. Sylvester is a highly respected consultant of health in the experience of manufacturing, construction, and other sectors. He's known for his profound knowledge and practical approach to leadership, risk management, and also incredible and also fortunate to have him with us here. So first, before we start, let me dive into today's topic. I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our company, Chevron Consulting Limited, which is a QHSE consulting company. We specialize in providing comprehensive consultancy services that span the spectrum of quality, health, safety, and security, also alongside with environmental management. Our mission is to assist organizations developing and implementing robust systems that not only comply with the regulatory requirements, but also promote a culture of continuous improvement and excellence. We understand the complex challenge that businesses face in this dynamic environment. With our team of seasoned experts, we offer tailored solutions that are designed to enhance operational efficiency, to ensure regulatory compliance, and foster a safe and healthy workplace. Our services include, but not all limited, risk assessment, safety audits, trainings, development programs, manpower outsourcing, HSE third-party project management, strategic advisory services, and other applicable HSE services that are aimed at driving sustainable and mitigating. Thank you very much, and over to you, Mr. Sylvester. I'll be here with Mr. Aldo all through this. Mr. Aldo, over to you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on this webinar. Just as my colleague said earlier, we are delighted to have you as we delve into the business of today. The theme of our discussion, leadership skills needed to influence, challenge, and drive within occupational health and safety. So it is an interesting topic because in recent time, we do hear people saying, I'm a leader, even on the project side, for instance, that those that are familiar with the construction industry, we do hear people said, I'm a leader, foreman saying I'm a leader, supervisor saying I'm a leader. Now, I want to believe at the end of this discussion, we should be able to know that for someone to become a leader, the person is supposed or ought to be equipped with some of these skills that will be discussed in the course of this discussion, in the course of this session. So what we are trying to do is to ensure we make this session as brief interactive and insightful as possible. So once again, my name is Audu Atta Sylvester. I will be leading us through this session. So let's quickly get on the agenda of the day. So for the agenda of the day, number one, we are going to be getting an insight into this discussion, which is the introduction. Then number two, we are going to having a definition of leadership to get the background of what leadership actually stands for. Number three, the skills in effective OHS leadership. Agenda number four, setting clear objectives. Agenda number five, influence and persuasion. Agenda number six, change management. And agenda, the last agenda has to do with, sorry. Okay, sorry, there was an interruption there. So agenda number seven is ethical leadership. So without wasting time, let us get on the business of the day. So just as I mentioned earlier, I said leadership is something that is talked about very much. Some persons are seasoned leaders. Some strive to actually better their capabilities in leadership, and some also strive to become leaders tomorrow. So you can see that it is possible for everyone to be in that leadership or to be play a leadership role. But the main point now is how do we excel? How are they going to excel in this position? And that is why it is very important that we look at some of these skills that can equip us to become better leaders while we are driving OHS. So therefore, it is can be stated that individual in leadership position need to acquire efficient understanding of the concept. So you cannot go into leadership without understanding what is expected of you, what the concept itself stands for. And that is why we feel that you need to understand the skills that is required of you to become a better leader, driving OHS. So why we want to contextualize or narrow this discussion down to OHS is because if you check out broader management concept, leadership that can be managed in a broader organizational objective may be too wide or way too many, you understand, for OHS leadership. And that is why we want to bring out some of the skills for you to understand of leadership. Leadership can be said to be the ability of individual or people to influence and guide followers. So I want to isolate two words from this definition, which is influence and guide. You understand? To influence is the ability for someone to affect someone's behavior or character. Now, for you to influence, to affect someone's behavior or character positively, you require a certain skill for you to be able to influence someone, that is to affect that person. So let us take let me try and bring us or take us to the direction of behavioral-based safety, for instance. You know, in the ABC of behavioral-based safety, the A, which stands for the antecedent, has to do with a behavior that gives birth to a new behavior. So a leader, for instance, now should be able to affect another behavior positively, to create another positive behavior. And for you to do that, you require some certain skill, you understand, which are some of the skills we are going to be mentioning. And also to guide. To guide is more like to direct people, you understand, to lead them to the right path. So if you don't have any skill, if you don't have the required skill, you discover that instead of you to influence and guide this set of people, reverse becomes the case. So leadership plays a central role in success and direction of business. You understand? In every organization you go today, you discover that businesses organization depends on successful leaders to communicate their mission, which is how they decide to interact or what they decided to give to the customer, and their vision, which is where they are heading to. So it is also very important that leaders in every organization unite team members around those goals and ensure that those goals are achieved. So leadership is a very key concept that cannot be overemphasized when we are discussing occupational health and safety. So now let us quickly get on the skills in effective OHS leadership. Skills that can equip individuals to influence, challenge, and drive change within occupational health and safety in an organization is what we are trying. One is setting clear objectives. Setting clear objectives. As we understand, an objective is a goal that we strive at. You understand that the striving at, what you are aiming at is what we call objective. And you must accept with me this morning that it is very difficult for a business, you understand, to succeed when a clearly stated objective is not established. You have to establish it also within the OHS to also boost or to actually improve the performance within your department. And let me tell us, for every organization, there usually used to be a broader objective. Let me give us an example. For instance, an organization might have an objective of maintaining a safe work environment. You understand? So if an organization is having a broader objective of maintaining a safe work environment, you as OHS leader, for instance, what is your own objective that must align with this broader objective? Okay, let me give us also an example. I may want to align my objective with the broader organizational objective by setting, okay, I want to reduce lost time injury by 20% or first aid incident. Okay, let me just use first aid injuries by 20%. If by the time I've been able to actually achieve this by the end of the timeline, by the timeline set for the achievement of this objective, that means this has aligned with the broader organizational objective. So what we must also understand is that while setting your objective, you do not need to bring out every risk you identify and set objective based on the risk, the entire risk you've identified. You don't have to do that. You understand? So what you need to do, just as the example I just gave us, let us use injury for example. Your total recordable injury rate, for instance, if you set your objective based on first aid injury, and you were able to achieve that, I think in the cadre or in the hierarchy of total recordable injury rate, that is the lowest on the cadre. So if you were able to achieve that, then you shouldn't be looking at lost time injury, medical treatment injury, and the rest of them. So you should look at the key objective, you understand, that will eventually have biggest impact on the health and safety of such organization. So now, let us quickly look at when setting your objective. What are your considerations? What we have on the screen is what most of us are familiar with. But as we discuss down the line, we are going to see how we make it specific to this, to the occupational health and safety. Now, when setting your objective, you may want to consider the SMART model, which most of us that have management background, or those of us that have attended one or two management trainings, we are familiar with this model, which is what we call the SMART model. So the SMART model, the S stands for specific. So while setting your objective, there are questions you need to ask. At the end of the day, by the time you have answers to these questions, that means you are on the right track. So now, the specific question is telling us that quantify your goal with the question, what do I want to accomplish? You understand? What are you out to achieve? It's very, very important. What are you out to achieve? What are you out to accomplish? We'll get answer to that on our next slide. Will achieving this goal have an important impact? Just as I said earlier, if we recall, I said whatever objective you are going to set within OHS, ensure it aligns with the broader organizational objective. That means it's going to align with the broader organizational objective. So if you are setting an objective, for instance, for first aid injury, you understand, ensure it aligns with the broader organizational objective of maintaining a safe work environment. What actions will I need to take? You cannot go out and say you want to achieve an objective without having actions lined up to ensure that that objective is achieved. So from the examples I've just given, if you need to do that, that means you have to look at your leading indicators like induction, trainings, sensitization, coaching, mentoring, and the rest of them. These are some of the things some of the actions you can as well take to ensure you meet such objectives. So measurable, you should be able to track and quantify your goals progress. What does this mean? If, for instance, I set a timeline of biannually, which is 6 months, or annually, which is 1 year, with frequency, how frequently am I going to monitor this progress in achieving this objective? Is something that is also very, very important. Is it going to be monthly? Is it going to be quarterly? Is it going to be biannually? Or is it going to be annually? So the frequency of measurement or monitoring also very important because this helps the goal maker stay focused on track, you understand, with reaching deadlines. So these are some of the things we also need to know. So the other one is achievable or attainable, whichever way we want to look at it. You understand? So is the goal achievable? It's another question. You understand? If it is achievable, then do we have everything in place to ensure that it is attained? So this may need you to start gathering data. You look at how do you gather data? You look at the parts, matrix or data, you understand, to build on, to do comparison and see if what you have on ground is enough for you to attain this goal. So you can gather data, ask team members for help, and learning new skills. You understand? So these are one of the things, one of the areas that makes your objective very, very smart. So realistic. A goal should align with the broader business goal. I think while discussing, I've been able to touch some of this area while I was discussing earlier. So a goal should align with the broader business goal and must be appropriate to what that person is trying to accomplish. I've given us an example when an organization wants to maintain a safe work environment. A safe work environment does not appear to be in place without actions or people bringing ideas together, you understand, to ensure that goal or that broader organizational objective is accomplished. So you understand, you need to ensure that your own aligns, you understand, with that organization's broader objective. So time bound, you understand. So you also look at set for your objective to be smart as well. You have to set a timeline for it. That is what we are saying. If you recall when I mentioned earlier, how do you want to, at what timeline do you want to achieve this objective? Is it annually? Yes, you can set it, the time annually, but there must be a frequency of measurement, which the measurable aspect of it has addressed. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be biannually, and it could be annually, depending on how the objective is set. But for every objective that is set, determine a short term, or you can also determine whether it is a short term or long term, or combination of both of them. You can then determine the timeline. So it's very, very important to look at, to adopt the SMART model. So let's look at the simple example, which I want to believe will make this very easy for us to understand. So example of SMART objective. So let's imagine you want to reduce the injury rate in your workplace. Let's assume you want to reduce your injury rate in your workplace. A SMART objective might look like this. Specific. I want to reduce the injury rate by 20%. Measurable. I will track the number of reported injury each month. Now, the frequency of monitoring of this objective of 20% is what? Monthly. You can see. So now, achievable. I will achieve safety, I will implement a safety training program for all employees. What this is saying is that this is what you need to do. You understand? This is what you need to do to ensure that the objective is met. You understand? Some of the things, just as I mentioned earlier, there are actions that must take place. So one of the actions here for you to meet this 20% objective is I will implement a safety training program for my employees. So you understand. So these are some of the things you need to do that has to do with achieving. So realistic. You understand? You are realistic. You know, I mentioned this earlier that you need to check, ensure that this is actually aligns with what you are actually, the organization is out to attain, like the broader organizational objective. So for it to be realistic now, what is expected of you is to ensure that, you understand, for it to be realistic, what is expected of you is that this goal must be appropriate with what the organization or broader objective is. So time bound, I will achieve this reduction within 6 months. You understand? So now you can see the timeline for this objective is 6 months. You understand? But what the person actually want to achieve, the specific objective that this person wants to achieve is to reduce the rate, to reduce the injury rate by 20%. So you can see this is a simple, SMART objective. The example that at a glance you can easily understand. When I started earlier, I promised that this session was going to be interactive. So I've come to the end of the first skill that is necessary, or that is required of us as OHS leaders. So questions are welcome. Let's see when we have questions or contribution before we move ahead. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know if anyone can hear me. Do we have any question?
We can hear you. I think for our side, no, there's no question. I think it's quite clear. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So now, planning to achieve objectives. When planning how to achieve your OHS objective, there are some factors that you need to consider as well. You need to consider what resources will be required. Is it financial? Is it human? Is it equipment or infrastructure? These are things you also need to consider. Recall, we talked about whether it is achievable or whether it is realistic. These are some of the things that will determine whether your objective is realistic or it is achievable. Understand? You need to check some resources that will be required. So who will be responsible? Who is responsible for what? Is also very important. You understand? If you are setting objective, you need to look at who will be responsible. Do we have areas you need to bring in the management team? Is there any area you need to step on some of this responsibility to ensure this objective is achieved on your own? Is there any area you need to delegate such responsibility? This question is very important. So when it will be completed, I think that has been addressed earlier. You need to tell that which is the time bound. What is the timeline for this objective? When are we likely going to complete? You're going to achieve this objective? Is it 1 year? Is it 6 months? It depends on how you want to set your own objective. How the result will be evaluated, including indicators for monitoring. So we've talked about that. If you check when we discuss the frequency of monitoring, you have to benchmark your progress based on the matrix or the baseline of where you are coming from. For example, what has happened? What total number of injury have we recorded? First aid injury did we record last year, or have you recorded last year? Understand? When you look at those information, you evaluate it and check the indicators. You check your monitoring if you are making progress or not. How the action to achieve HSE objective will be integrated into other business processes. Of course, this is very, very important. As I mentioned earlier, the actions you are taking, ensure it is integrated into other business processes. Of course, it must not affect other business processes. So the integration and the integration of such actions must the broader business processes or other business processes must accommodate these actions that must be taken. So in also planning your objective, to recall, we mentioned whether it's going to be long-term or short-term, or is the adoption of both, determines on how you want to do it. So we are trying to look at long-term planning in planning your objective. Long-term planning in occupational health and safety is crucial for creating a sustainable, safe, and healthy workplace. So what we are trying to discuss here is to look at some guidelines to long-term planning in occupational health and safety. And the number one there is assessment and analysis. Assessment and analysis. What we are saying here is for you to regularly conduct thorough assessment to identify potential hazards and evaluate risks associated with them. Don't forget, when I was saying earlier, yeah, it's good for us to do assessment and identify hazards and, if possible, to understand, evaluate the risks. But however, when the risks are evaluated, while setting that objective, we should look for the one that align, that is going to impact the business or the organization positively before we do that. So we can collect, analyze data on past incidents, near misses, health-related absences, lost time injuries to identify patterns and areas that are needing improvement. We've talked about this also. When you collect, by the time you've collected your data and analyze it, you look the area that you do your more like a gap analysis. You identify the gap, then you actually look for area for improvement. So regulatory compliance. You need to get yourself abreast with national and international regulation and standards related to occupational health and safety. Which ISO is which? Is any ISO on board? What is the ISO talking about? Is any OHS regulation outside? Is any OSHA regulation outside? Is any IOSH or any safety standard out? Are you aware or are you familiar with this standard? So these are some of the things that we also need to look at. So it's very, very important to ensure that we stay or plan very well for our objective. You understand? Because conduct regular audit also to ensure compliance with OHS regulations and standards. And you must accept with me that one of the key benefits of conducting regular audit is for you, of course, to identify gaps in the system and ensure that you are not caught up with any regulatory non-compliance. Policy development, develop and maintain comprehensive occupational health and safety policies that outline organizational commitment to health and safety. Yes, if one is not, of course, in place, in your long-term planning for this thing, you can also identify this because these are some of the areas that you may be found wanting. So when policies are not in place or when the policies in place are not sufficient, there's room for you to come up with new ones or review the existing ones to actually meet up with the current reality. Training and education. Implement training programs for employees at all levels to ensure they are aware of safety procedures and best practices. Knowledge, they say, is power. You don't expect much from employees if there is a knowledge gap. You understand? So training does not come even before some of these compliance issues. When a compliance gap or non-conformity is identified, you can also come up with a training or like a sensitization workshop, you understand, for your employees to ensure that they are abreast with current safety procedures and practices. You understand? So key areas to look at could be emergency response, first aid, and evacuation procedure. So employee involvement, though we are going to get to that, employees are one of the key stakeholders. So when you want to drive successfully, establish a sound objective, employees must not be left out of it. So by doing this, you need to establish safety committee involving employees from various levels. And this, the benefit of this is going to foster, you understand, a collaborative approach to workplace safety. How do we do? You have employees from the lower cadre, the supervisory cadre, the managerial cadre, in the safety committee, brainstorming together. So you can as well create mechanism for employees to provide feedback on safety issues and suggest improvement. What this is saying is military approach should be left out of this because we've seen instances, we've been to projects, we've been in an organization when safety observations are made or safety concerns arises, employees are afraid of coming forward to actually say it out for fear of their superior getting back to them. So create a mechanism. And some of these mechanisms, as we progresses, will actually be addressed. So health and wellness program, regular health screening and wellness program to monitor and promote employee health. This is also very important. It is not it must not be work. You need to study the system, study your employee, and ensure that you can as well even go ahead to screen them. Regular health screening must not be anything you require that requires any device. You understand? One-on-one engagement also will reveal a lot on the employees' well. And when you are coming up with a wellness program as well, a wellness program could be in the form of team bonding. It could be like hanging out and the rest of them. So these are the things we need also to look at. So incident management and response. Incident management and response. Incident management and response. Thoroughly investigate incident to identify root causes and implement corrective action. So it's also very important. I know we are familiar with what we call incident. Incident are unplanned events or undesired occurrences. You understand? So what we do when they do happen, understand, or when they eventually happen, it is very important also for us to investigate and identify the root causes, implement corrective actions. So now the problem now is, do we have a system in place? Most organizations, what they do have is, it happens, okay, nobody dies, we go ahead. It is also very important to develop a robust system for reporting and documenting incidents near misses. So this is also very important. So continuous improvement. Establish key performance indicators to measure the effectiveness of OHS initiative. Like I mentioned key KPIs the other time, where I measure the leading indicator. This as well, you might consider the lagging indicator in this area. By the time you put them side by side, you understand and measure, you see when the initiative you introduce, how effective the initiative it is. You understand? So you check by the time you match it side by side, whether the leading indicators is green or your lagging indicators is red, you will know. So you check the total number of your injury rate within this period, and you check the number of induction and the zero injury rate. By the time you match them together, you will see if actually a progress has been made. You understand? So regularly review and understand safety policies and procedures based on performance data and changing conditions. Of course, when policies are meant to be reviewed. You understand? When things changes, we have new standards, procedures in place, and the existing policy does not actually reconcile with the current reality or does not matches the current reality. There's a room for us to review such policy and procedure. Cultural integration is very, very important as well. Ensure top management demonstrates commitment to OHS. Yeah, I want to lay actually buttress on this. You know, we've been in an organization, and some of us that are on this call that are also in an organization where we have management paying lip services, but they are not actually committed to. They are not actually committed to what they are saying. Oh, they will say, oh, OHS this, OHS that, but actually their commitment to ensure that OHS is driven safety protocols and procedures are driven becomes a problem. So when the safety of culture is to be promoted, management must be involved. You understand? So promote a culture where safety is a core value and integral to all business operations. So it must not be anything that do with OHS that should be your business. In other areas, don't forget, we've mentioned earlier that a broader business objective, for instance, could be to keep the work environment safe. So what you need to do is, if you get into all various department processes, you understand, of the business, and you ensure that culture has become, safety has become the core thing, safety got into their blood, you discover that you have less problem when establishing your objective. So thank you. That is that. So we are moving on to the second skill, which is influence and persuasion. Influence and persuasion. This is also one of the core skills that any OHS professional must acquire or must have. You understand? And for any OHS professional to be influential or persuasive, it demands that such person must have, one, communication skills. Now, communication is not just mere communication. For a communication skill to actually impact or influence your followers, it has to be effective. And when do we say a communication is effective? When it is clearly stated. When it is clearly what? Stated or communicated. The information you want to convey is properly understood. The message or the medium with which this thing is communicated is not vague. You understand? So it is very plain for people to understand. So effective communication is essential for ensuring safety protocols are understood and followed. But if it is blurred, if it is not clear, if it is vague, for instance, how would it be understood and followed? And that is why we came up with some of, or this session has come up with some of the strategies and practices for developing and maintaining effective communication skill in occupational health and safety. And to start with is avoid technical jargon. Use plain language that all employees will understand. Technical jargons, for instance, we've seen like safety officers or OHS leaders on site meeting a floor-shore employee and telling him, have you seen the ramps for this job? What is ramps? You understand? The message seen or as the risk assessment and method statement of this job is communicated with you. That is what you are trying to do. But you are, that is what you are trying to achieve. But we are coming up with, have you seen the ramps? So in this context now, the ramps is a technical jargon in this particular context. Okay, we've also seen where instead of people to say, okay, this activity you are doing, this man is close to you, you guys are close to each other or one another, thereby this co-activity, this is the hazard, this is the risk, you understand? There could be hazard interference and the rest of them. But instead of saying co-activity, for instance, you see people saying CMOPS. Okay, if it is even better mentioned when we say simultaneous operations, for instance, but you see people saying CMOPS. So you need to check, you understand, the people, the receiver of this message before you determine actually what you want to send out. You understand, to make the information very clear and not vague. Now, number two is to create an environment where employees feel comfortable providing feedback on safety issues. If you recall, I said it not quite long ago, that employees in most organizations will see safety-related issues, whether it's defective, most especially in the construction industry. Employees are being given a packaged or what we call defective equipment tools to go and work. Now, it is not safe for them to use it. It is not safe for them to use it, but they are scared. They are actually scared of getting back and said, or going back to raise it up that, to raise this concern that this equipment is not safe. You understand? So, sound OHS leadership, you understand, or a skillful OHS leader must create an environment where employees feel comfortable providing feedback on safety issues. And let me tell you, it's not an easy task. You understand? There could be management obstacles, challenges, constraints, but for us, for you to be actually a sound OHS leader, you must make sure this environment is created. So another one is listening actively to employees' concern, show empathy towards their experiences and suggestions. Yeah, we've seen some leaders, the employees or the subordinates, most especially the shop floor employees, will not even express or try to say whatever they intended to say. You see an attack. They stop them from saying it. You understand? The environment is militarily, you understand, it's coercive. Employers are actually scared, you understand, of saying out their concerns, you understand, and observations and the rest. So listening to them, active listening is very good. And don't forget, it is also our responsibility on any organization we find ourselves to ensure we coach these employees and monitor them as well. So by the time we listen to them, from their suggestion, experiences we have, then we can then make suggestions. But if we don't do that, there's no way we are going to make any suggestion. We must listen to them first. So now, also, we have to provide regular updates. We have to provide regular updates on OHS policies and procedures when changes are made. Okay, let me give us an example, which I know if you go to most organizations today, some policies or some procedures also were developed because of COVID-19 pandemic. But I can tell you today that if you go to some of these organizations today, no amendment has been made. If you check their policies and some procedures, they are still in place. If you run into those documents, has there been any update, review, and see whether this thing is no longer in place and taken out? And the other way around is, if we introduce a new thing into a policy, maybe in an organization, or you don't have alcohol and smoking policy, for instance, and it's been introduced, you understand? Has it been communicated? You understand? So, or has the updates been provided to employees that there has been a new policy or procedure? This is also very important. Use clear and visible signage to communicate safety protocols and others. This is also how to effectively communicate. Now, let me also give us an example, real-time example. I come to your project site, for instance, and use a caution tape to separate an area. So now, the area will be better understood when it is accompanied with a signage, for instance. Okay, because you may separate an area, you separated an area, maybe an excavation is ongoing, for instance. Welding activity, hot work is ongoing. How do I know, you understand, that these activities are some of the reasons why this area is separated? So you need to use a clear and visible signage to communicate safety protocols and others. Implement interactive training session. I think we've discussed this area earlier. Knowledge is not something that you just sleep and just get overnight. So you don't expect much from employees if you left them where they are. So you understand? So at any point in time, involve employee in an interactive training session. The training should be open for question and answer and practical demonstration. And this is for clarity. You understand? So conduct regular refresher courses and emergency drill to keep safety knowledge current. Yes, just like we have the first aid refresher, emergency drill, any training that has taken place for a very long time, you can schedule a refresher training. It could be quarterly, it could be biannually, just to keep the knowledge of that particular discussion very fresh. So establish open channels of communication where employees can report hazard, incident, near misses without fear of retaliation. Yes, this one we are going to take another direction by saying what we mean channel in this context is maybe, for instance, you coming up with hazard identification box. You understand? When you have hazard identification hazard box, for instance, hazard identification box, employee can just make their suggestion, observation, pen them down and just drop it quietly. Nobody will know. Of course, it's more like an anonymous channel that name will not be written on the hazard form. You understand? So employee can just make their observation, suggestion, and just drop it in the box. Form safety committee that includes representatives from various departments to facilitate two-way communication. I think we've done justice to this the other time while we're discussing objective as well. So provide safety information in multiple languages if your workforce is multilingual. Yes, if you are, for instance, for those joining us from outside the country, if you are in Nigeria, for instance, you are working in the northern part of the country, it's not wrong, and it's the right thing to do for you to provide like safety information in English and in Hausa. It could be a signage, it could be a handbook. You understand? Provided in Hausa or in English. If you are in the West, for instance, you can do that in Yoruba, in English as well. If you have French, you have German, you have that those ones that does not understand English language, you understand, and the site is so multilingual. Ensure that you put all these things in place. Use digital platform like emails and mobile apps to decimate safety information quickly. We have mobile app. These days, we have WhatsApp groups or real-time alert apps that you can quickly communicate safety information out. So it's very, very important. Why? Because this enhances our communication to be very, very effective. So implement real-time alert system for immediate communication during emergencies. This has been addressed. Maintain accurate record of all communication related to OHS, including training session, safety meeting, and incident reporting. This is talking about documentation, which is most of the most at time challenges we are having managing occupational health and safety. When you have a record of some information, or you have actions taken, ensure they are, while they are communicated, ensure they are as well documented. Why it aids effective communication is that we are going to fall back on it tomorrow to gain or to extract an information, you understand, for further communication. So documentation is very, very key, you understand, in occupational health and safety communication. Ensure that all safety-related documents and policies are essentially accessible to all employees. Yes, like the permit to work system, the risk assessment and method statement, it should be displayed. These are not documents that, these are not classified documents that should be kept away from employees. It should be declassified, it should be open. This document should be kept on site. You understand? Because these employees are the people that are exposed or that are affected by what is contained in this document. So this document should not be taken away from them. So actively involve employees in safety planning and decision-making process. Just as I say, they are key stakeholders in the business of OHS. So you can't just go and start implementing, taking decisions, coming out with policies, procedures, standard without carrying them along. Ensure employees are carried along. Acknowledge and reward employees who contribute to safety improvement. Yes, of course. This is also one way to motivate employees. The acknowledgement may not be financial, or the reward may not be financial. Calling them out when you are having your safety gathering to say this employee is the best employee or safety compliant employee of the month or of the week goes a long way. That encourages the employee also to put in more in terms of safety compliance. So that is very important. So let's look at the next objective. But before we move to the next skill that is required of us as OHS, or that equips us as OHS leaders, the floor is open for questions. I think we've had to discuss setting clear objectives, and we've been able to discuss persuasion and we've been able to discuss influence and persuasion. So questions are welcome before we proceed. Please, the floor is open. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for this presentation. For me, I don't have any question, but I just think your flow is okay. You can just carry on for me. It's okay. Thank you very much. Insightful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. So the next one is stakeholders engagement. stakeholders engagement. Before we go proper into stakeholders engagement, I want to draw our attention that as OHS professionals or leaders, we need to understand that stakeholders are also interested parties in any organization you go. You understand? So before you start even building rapport and relationship of trust with the stakeholders, you need to carry out what we call analysis of interested parties. Analysis of interested parties. Who are the interested parties? Interested parties are stakeholders, and these stakeholders could be within the internal or external environment of your organization. It is very, very important to do the analysis. And how do you do this analysis? To carry out the analysis of stakeholders or interested parties, you need to carry out what we call your power and interest grid analysis. There's what we call power and interest grid. It is very, very important. Now, stakeholders, they are all stakeholders, high power and high power, but their interest in whatever you are doing within the organization is very low. Let me give us an example. For an employee of an organization, it has high power and also it has high interest in whatever you are doing. How do they have high power? Because whatever you do in your organization, they are directly affected. And the power they have is any complaint they make is going to actually go a long way. You understand? So you need to consider them. So another high power and low interest. Let's look at regulatory bodies, like regulators. For instance, if you are in Lagos, the Lagos State Safety Commission, for instance, is high power, but they have no interest in whatever you are doing in your organization until a non-conformance is established. You don't see them coming around. They can only come around to check your compliance level. You understand? But they have the power when you actually deviate from what you are asked to do. Analysis of interested parties in this context of discussion is what we are referring to as stakeholders, whichever way you want to put them. So just as I was saying, it is good you build a rapport and relationship of trust with stakeholders, health and safety effort forward, which in turn contribute to business continuity and success. So do not forget, these people are very important. I've just given us an example. Like within your environment, within the organization, you could have your employees, but within outside the environment, which is the external environment of the organization, you could have like regulators. Whichever way it is, you need to build a good rapport and relationship of trust with them. So stakeholders engagement is very, very important. And that makes the position of ISO 45001, which is operational and safety management system, you understand, on stakeholders engagement, actually goes a long way telling us how it's important to engage them, stakeholders, you understand, because the benefit of it is that by the time we engage them, they feel this personal stake, you understand, that they are part of the business and they assume responsibility and take whatever you are doing as if they own them, you understand, and that is why the engagement is very important. So now the first thing to look at, according to promote stakeholders involvement, as stated, clearly stated by ISO 45001, which is occupational health and safety management system, is clear communication channel. When stakeholders are well informed, they can make informed decisions and actively contribute to safety initiatives. For instance, let's assume you're having a challenge meeting up with a particular compliance that you are mandated to do that. And you decided to keep quiet. And they say a closed mouth is a closed destiny. Instead of you reaching out, maybe you can get help from these stakeholders. You decided to keep quiet. So when you inform such stakeholder, you can bring in his or our own initiative, you understand, to ensure and contribute towards whatever initiative it is you were having challenges with. So stakeholders consultation. The standard encourages organizations to consult with stakeholders during development and implementation of occupational health and safety management system. Let us use compliance, suppliers, for instance, as an example. You've designed your OHS management system, then you have a procedure for dealing with suppliers, for instance, and they are not carried along. Maybe there's this procedure that if you are entering your facility, they must be fully kitted with PPE, and they were not carried along. How do you expect them to comply? Because they were not properly consulted. The consultation was not there. So stakeholder consultation is very important. Okay, so the next one is shared responsibility. You understand? Whenever you are making any decision-making processes and safety initiatives, you understand, you need to involve stakeholders as well, because this creates, just as I said earlier, it creates a sense of ownership among them. Or you understand? And when they feel this personal stake, they must take that your business very serious or your initiative serious, because they take it more like it's theirs. You understand? Because they have something to lose, because they are part of the process. They are part of this initiative. So it's also very important that we share responsibility with stakeholders. Employee involvement, employees are stakeholders within
Guess it's network, right? Not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. I would do. We can't hear anything. No, we cannot hear anything.
How do
Hello,
please
Mr.
mute yourself?
Mr. Sylvester, you are mute.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, there was an interruption. From the network. So, and that is why there was that glitch. So thank you. Thank you. So just as I was saying, employee involvement is very important. So they are stakeholders in an organization. And if they are properly carried along, why we set up some of these policy and procedures, if their colleague is found not doing the right thing, the colleague can be easily reminded or corrected, you understand, to stay in line. So supply engagement also is very, very important. Suppliers and contractors are vital stakeholders in many organization operations. By involving them in safety discussion and ensuring they meet safety standard also, organizations enhance the safety of their supply chain and reduce risks. If you recall, not quite long ago, I actually discussed this about suppliers. You understand? So even if you're having a subcontractor or a vendor, anybody coming to work in an organization, they are to be carried along in whatever it is you are doing within your safety management system. Because if they are aware and that knowledge gap is not there, you understand that the compliance level will be actually or really encouraging. So training awareness, engaging stakeholders through comprehensive training ensures they understand their role and responsibilities also. This also boils down to the employees and even your suppliers, subcontractors, and the rest. It's not out of place if you train your subcontractors on your own safety standard. You understand? The procedure that should be followed. You understand? When you set up your internal procedure, you can sensitize or train the external or stakeholders now on these procedures. Of course, training the internal stakeholders. So we should also, we should as well acknowledge the external stakeholders while carrying out our training. So now feedback mechanism, also very important. Feedback mechanism organization are also encouraged by ISO 45000 occupational health and safety management system to establish feedback mechanism that allows stakeholders to report safety concern, provide suggestion. Let me tell us the benefit of this. If, for instance, you have stakeholders and you have a closed system, you understand, and you do not work environment of your business, then when you are not doing the right thing, you will not know. But if, for instance, you have an open system that feedbacks are welcome in, when a particular procedure or policy or standard is not doing well, it's not in place, it will be easy for you to actually acknowledge this gap and ensure it is closed. So to offer insight into safety, it also offers insight into safety performance, which is what I was saying. That is, if you identify this gap, for instance, and because your door is open to suggestion and feedback, you understand? So you easily close this gap. And by closing this gap, it enhances your performance. So this mechanism promotes open dialogue and proactive problem solving. Yeah, but because when something is on ground and you are not aware, how would you switch? It will be easy for you to actually, before it gets out of hand. So participatory decision making, which is some of the things I think we've also touched when we were discussing earlier. Organizations are encouraged to involve stakeholders in safety-related decisions. I think earlier, you understand, that both internal and left out of key occupational health and safety decisions is very, very important. That must not be forgotten. Continuous improvement. By involving stakeholders in evaluating the occupational and health safety management system performance and suggesting improvement, organizations demonstrate their commitment to responsiveness to stakeholders' concern. When a gap is identified, maybe after carrying out your gap analysis and the gap is identified, what is next? What next? The next thing is for you to improve on that area with which gap has been identified. And without involving stakeholders, how would you know some of these areas before you could even possibly identify the gaps? So these are some of the things that we really need to look at as OHS, occupational health and safety leaders. These are core skills that we must have. So thank you. We've come to the end of another skill, which we just finished. So for us, from the beginning of this discussion, we promised that we'll try as much as possible to make it interactive. So what we've just discussed, the skill we've just discussed. The floor is also open. Any question, any contribution before we proceed? Thank you. Sorry, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, so well heard. You're well heard. For me, I think you can proceed because of time. So
Yeah,
that we have,
Mr. Audu, we're
Yes.
okay. It's quiet and clear. So yeah,
yeah,
I think we
yeah,
can go ahead. Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
thank you. Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry, sir. How long is this going to last again?
No, we are almost an hour, and we are looking at 2 hours. But by before an hour, 30 minutes, we should be done. So we are looking at 140. 40, yeah, like 20 minutes to, I don't know where. Sorry, sir. Where are you joining from? If you are in Nigeria, we should round it up before 1 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, all right. It's all right.
All
But
right.
we'll have the recorded section or the slides.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is change management. You understand? This is another skill that occupational health and safety professionals or leaders must have. What is change? We've been hearing it. Some will say MOC, management of change, change management, and the rest. Do we have an idea? Do we have the model? Do we understand the concept? Do we understand the model that should be used to understand to manage change? But let us try and bring out few things from this definition we have before. They say a change is a project initiative or solution being introduced in the organization to improve the way work gets done, solve a problem, or take advantage of an opportunity. Now, the problem we have introducing a change is that we've forgotten that some people or some employees in an organization or some persons have their routine way of doing their things. So just as this definition put forward, they say it's a project initiative being introduced. When you're introducing something, that means there has been an existing way of doing things. But yeah, it's not out of place to introduce a change. Because anytime we do that, we introduce it to actually solve a problem or take advantage of an opportunity. Let me give us a simple example in project management, like on construction project. If you are working in a manufacturing facility, for instance, and there need to be an extension, you understand? There need to be an extension or what we call expansion, you understand? Be it on the process or the structure. And it requires that some few expansion activities like construction project is to go on that in that facility. You understand? It requires that new employees are coming in, new contractors or subcontractors are coming in. Now you are having new people in your facility with different background, different mentality coming to work in your facility. Now, you have your own way of doing things. You have your routines, your pedestrian pathways, you have your vehicular pathways that you usually use. So, okay, if the expansion project or this project is going to affect your routine, for instance, like your pathway, I need to do a construction, maybe I need to hold it off to establish this exclusion zone. Now, it might require that this access will be diverted. Are we considering the inconveniences we are going to cause to this routine? That is one of the challenges that could possibly create resistance in change management. So as we progress, we understand very well. Then changes usually fail for human reasons. The promoters of this change did not attend to the reactions of normal people to disturbance of their routines. That which I have just discussed. So effective communication is one of the most important success factors for effective change management. You remember when we were discussing effective communication, we talked about the use of signage, you understand, safety signages and sound communication channel. For instance, if I put if I want to start a project, I will communicate it even within my own employees, within the facility, that a project is coming up. You understand? The project is coming up, that this so area will be hoarded up, and that these assets will be diverted. So when people are informed ahead of time, you will discover that you have less resistance. So let's quickly look at how to implement change management. Select the change management team. That is the first thing to do. Select your team across all boards to actually discuss and put a plan in place, how this change will be introduced and how this change will be managed. Identify management sponsorship and secure commitment. Yeah, why you must identify management sponsorship is that management must be aware and committed to the change coming in to avoid conflict. You understand? In organization, it's very easy for people to say, I'm not aware, which I know some of us here are experienced and we are familiar with this submission. I am not aware. People are easily quick to dodge responsibility. So develop implementation plan, including metrics. You understand? I said this earlier. There must be an implementation plan. Okay, is this change that is coming? Is it going to require an induction or training? You understand? What should we do? You understand? Put your plan in place. How it faces, how this change will be introduced, how it will be managed till the last stage. So it is very, very important. Then implement change in stages if possible. You understand? So when you draw up your plan, you implement it in stages. If it requires that you start from training, for instance, if it is construction project, introduction of the subcontractor coming in to the facility, you understand, various departments of the facility, where they should go and where they should not go, and your own employees, where you are diverting your assets, or the process you introduce, if it is a new thing they are not familiar with, you have to do all these things. Make sure you implement this change in stages. And don't forget to say, if possible. So collect and analyze data. How do you collect and analyze data? As you are implementing it, ensure that you get data and check if what you are doing actually is in line of the plan that is in place. Then quantify gaps and understand resistance. Why we say you should quantify a gap is more like a gap analysis. In this plan you've drawn up, do your gap analysis and understand resistance areas where resistance can possibly come from. What this resistance means, as we progress, we will understand in details, because we have areas that we discuss resistance in detail. So modify the plan as needed and look back to implementation steps. When gaps are identified, I was trying to turn or reject the call that came in. So modify the plan as needed and look back to the implementation step. You know, when you carry out your gap analysis and you identify areas that resistance will be coming from, what we are saying here is that for you modify your plan, the area that can accommodate this thing, then you look back to your implementation step and see how effective it is. So now, human side of change. Human side of change. If you recall, I said earlier that people come up with a change without carrying, let me just use the words or the term stakeholders in this instance. You understand? People embark on introducing a change, but they don't carry stakeholders along because they don't know the change being introduced is going to affect the routine, the way people have been doing things. So when you don't do that, you face this problem, the human side of change. Even carefully planned effort to introduce change can be short-lived if human element is neglected or left to chance. So when planning a change, it is important to identify potential resistance to changes and then design motivation into the process. You understand? So how do we do that? How to do that is the application of outcome to identify resistance. What we mean by resistance is not that people don't welcome new ideas or new initiatives we refer to as change in this context. But it's because they have their ways of doing things before you are introducing the change. So the application of outcome to identify this resistance will go a long way to solving most of your problems. What does outcome stand for? The outcome is ability, direction, competence, opportunity, and motivation. It's a model that can be used, you understand, to diagnose and address resistance in various contexts, such as organizational change, project implementation, or personal development. So let's quickly look at how to use the outcome model to identify potential reasons for resistance. Don't forget, we said the A in the outcome stands for ability. The physical or mental capacity to perform a task. Of course, this is a layman meaning of ability. So now the question, the area of interest is the question to identify resistance. Do individuals have the physical or mental capacity to perform the required tasks? It's one of the questions that should that should be asked. Like, don't forget, this change is not limited. It could be like introduction of policies. It could be like introduction of procedures. It could be introduction of standard and the rest of them. So it's very, very important that we know whether these people have the physical or mental capability to perform the tasks given to them while we are setting up this change or while we are introducing this change. Are there any health issues or disabilities affecting their ability to contribute? When we are bringing people in or when we are introducing a change into the system, okay, let's say you have an employee that has a problem of vertigo, understand? Maybe phobia for height or something, and maybe you decided to relocate your valve in a process from the ground floor to areas where the person needed a platform to access. For instance, do you know whether the person, how do you know the person will be able to access them? Because you did not consider the person's health issues, that he has problem with accessing height. So in that case, resistance will come from this area also. So it's very, very important that we consider, we look into the issues and disabilities affecting people's ability to contribute to this change we are introducing. So is the workload manageable given their current capacity? Which workload are you giving them? This change you are introducing, is it an additional workload? If the workload will be too much for them, did you consider bringing in an additional hand? These are some of the things that gives birth to, resistance. You understand? So potential signs of resistance, what it has to do with ability, complaint about physical or mental exhaustion. So you see people start complaining, you understand, about, oh, I won't be able to do this. You understand, I won't be able to do that because they feel they are not physically and mentally fit to carry out or physically and mentally able to carry out this assigned task or into that introduced change. So frequent absences, you understand, or tardying. You know, when people, another sign of resistance, you see people, like staying away from the assignment or task given to them. You understand? Or people boycotting that particular change that is being introduced. You understand? So it's one of the key signs of resistance when it comes to ability, change, management. So expression of feelings, overwhelmed or unable to keep up. You understand? Feeling of overwhelmed. You understand? You see them before you mention anything. This task is too much. You understand? The stress, this change that is being introduced is giving us is too much. So it's also a sign of resistance. By the time you see people making these complaints, no resistance is setting in when it comes to ability to adopt to the new change being introduced. So let's move to the next alphabet, which is direction in the outcome model. the fourth alphabet we mentioned was ability, which we're able to discuss in detail. So now the next one is direction. And the simple meaning of direction or definition is clear understanding of goals, tasks, and expectation. Now, in directing in the context of this direction, there are also questions to identify resistance. You understand? So now the first question is, do individuals understand what is expected of them? It's one of the questions that the originator or the initiator of change should be asking. I'm introducing this change. Do individuals understand what is expected of them to do? Either accepting or implementing this change, or you understand, or setting up the change. Do they understand what is expected of them? It's also a key question to identify resistance. So are the goals and objectives clearly communicated? Yeah, we are introducing a change. For instance, now, just as I said, like that of project on a project side, that we are introducing a hoarding, and there is a need for us to divert the pedestrian pathway or walkway. Now, let us say that is the objective. I understand, and that is the objective we've set. You understand, but is it clearly communicated? That is a key question that you must ask when it has to do with direction. Is there any ambiguity in their roles or responsibility? Is there any area that is big, that is not clearly stated? You understand, that is not clear. Why giving out this instruction? You also need to look at these areas. You understand, why giving out responsibility? Because questions to identify this resistance goes a long way to identify the potential sign of resistance. So when it has to do with direction, the potential sign of resistance that has to do with direction is confusion about tasks or goals. You see people, because they don't understand, they are confused. You understand? You give somebody an assignment to carry out, or you see people not complying, or you said, okay, there's no access here, go and turn around, or use the new pedestrian pathway, for instance. You see people still using the existing access. So you can see that there is a knowledge gap or confusion are setting. So it's a potential sign of resistance. It's very, very important. Question about the purpose or value of assignment. You see people start asking, what is this change all about? What is even the benefit? What are we out to even gain from this change being introduced? It's all about inconveniences. So this is also a potential sign of resistance. So inconsistent performance or effort that do not align with organizational goals. Now you see people are out to do this, then you see them tailoring that effort towards another direction. You understand? So it's a problem, and it's a potential sign of resistance. So now the C in the outcome model is competence, having the necessary knowledge to perform the task, having the necessary knowledge to perform the task. Then what are the questions to identify resistance when we are dealing with competence in the outcome model? One of the questions is, do individuals have the necessary skills and knowledge to complete their tasks? Now, why dishing out, or why introducing this change, or why giving responsibilities, why a change is being introduced? You must ask a question to see if they have the skills, if individuals have the skills and knowledge to complete their assigned tasks. Have they received adequate training and development opportunity? If you recall, when I was saying, I said, well, if you are bringing in a subcontractor, for instance, into your facility, you understand, it is also very important that they have the background of how the culture of your organization operates. The hazards in that facility are properly communicated. You understand? So let them have adequate training and development opportunity before training or a change is introduced or implemented. So now you also look at, are there gaps in the skill set that need to be addressed? Yes, of course, they have skill, but is the skill enough? Are there gaps? So if there are gaps, that gaps must be identified, you understand, in the area of skill set that they have. If it is insufficient or is not inadequate, then they might need to go and get more skill, or the system might need to organize a training or understand or sponsor a training for them to get more skill. So potential signs of resistance when it comes to competence, errors or poor quality work. Understand? When errors and poor quality works are seen, of course, this cut across all areas in an organization. When you see errors and poor quality work, then it's a potential sign of resistance coming from what? Competence. They could say the person is incompetent or the person is not properly carried along while the change is introduced. Request for additional training or help. When you see them requesting for additional training or help, no, it's a sign of resistance to that particular change that has to do with competence. You understand? So you see, even when people have a particular training, you see them asking for more. So when such question is asked, or when such request is made, no, it's a potential sign of resistance. So hesitation to take on new tasks or responsibility. You see people hesitating to take more responsibility because they feel what they have is enough for them. When you are having people like that, identify it's a problem. It's a sign of resistance. So applying this outcome model, you can identify and address potential reasons for resistance. So do not forget where we started from. That has also brought us to the end of this skill, which is change management. For whatever change that must be introduced in an organization, as OHS professionals and leaders, we must apply everything we've discussed here, most especially the outcome model, to identify where the problems could be coming from. Because whenever a change is introduced, it's going to alter people's routine, and there is a bound or possibility of resistance. So thank you. We've come to the end of that skill. So before we proceed, we need to take, this time around, I think we have to take questions, contribution. From the beginning, we've agreed that this session should be interactive. So for those of us that are concerned about time, we are on the last skill. This is the last skill that will be discussed. So let's take questions and contribution, if there are any. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Afolabi, kindly go ahead, please.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for this session. I think one thing that is key, if we are going to drive this, is ensuring that we have stakeholders
engagement,
and we buy them in. You know, you mentioned something like negotiation and influence and something like that. You must be able to ensure that they key into what your objective is, else it is dead on arrival. And one thing I want to stress is that as much as we have good goals as OHS personnel or professionals, the end game still boils down to management commitments. If there is no management commitment, we might not be able to do much. Even when we have because management needs to release some resources to ensure that you're able to achieve your goals at the end of the day. And also, there is need for management training in safety-related areas, because many people in management level, they see safety as a waste of resources. Because technically, to them, you are not bringing him money. So if you are not, because to them, in the layman view, safety is only helping you to spend money. They cannot quantify the savings that the HSE is bringing. So I just want to, so I will not take much time. It's key that, because most of these, some multinationals, so to say, that multinational companies, they are only having this facade. Many people in this health and safety sector, in this organization, we are only doing reactive. There is no proactive safety approach, only reactive. When things happen, okay, what do we do? There's no organizational learning such that we'll be able to learn from past mistakes and never have it repeated or reduce the frequency. Okay, let me hands off now so that you can continue, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Afolabi. Okay. Sorry, can you hear me? I don't know. Are you true, Mr. Afolabi? Hello, can anyone hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Please go ahead. I am.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Afolabi. I think that is the reality. Management commitment, if you recall, when I was discussing stakeholders engagement, there is this particular area I also discussed management commitment, because in most organizations, just as you said, they pay lip services. But when it comes to bringing out resources to implement, but just as we said, an argument can always be made, because when setting a broader organizational objective, when I was discussing setting clear objectives, so the management objective could be that they keep the work environment, to keep a safe work environment. So an argument can be made that in order to keep a safe work environment also, there's a need for you to accomplish the particular objective, that you need resources, like you embark on trainings, you understand, to ensure that first, you were able to reduce like lost time on first aid injury, for instance. By the time you reduce first aid injury, also, just as I mentioned earlier, in the hierarchy of the total recordable injury rate, if you check the first aid incident or your injuries at the bottom. So if you were able to reduce that first aid injury, that means you address this other area. So now it's going to be more money for the organization. Why is it going to be more money for the organization? Because money that should be spent on hospital and the rest of them, or litigations and the rest of them, has already been taken care of. So it's good. This part of some industry, let me just generalize it and say this part of the world, most especially the construction industry, people tend to be reactive and not proactive. But whichever way it is, I think stakeholders engagement, most especially those within your internal environment, your organization, is still very important. I don't know if we have more questions so that we can go ahead with the last skill. Do you have questions from any other person?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. So the last skill is ethical leadership. Ethical leadership. So when a leadership is said to be ethical, in most cases is identified with trust, honesty, fairness, charisma, and consideration. For us to understand ethical leadership very well, we've come up with some of the theories, like the social learning theory. So, but what we must understand with ethics is that it must align with some kind of beliefs and values. This time around, it's not the wider societal value. We are looking at the organization, what the organization believes, and the values of the organization. So this takes me back to the question of Mr. Afolabi. You understand? So what one organization, why is the oil and gas sector doing better in terms of OHS is because they see something in OHS that is of beneficial compared to other industry like the construction. You understand? They believe that when they put their monies into this, it's going to bring out more money for them because it's going to save them a lot. And that is why you see OHS is taking more serious in that industry compared to other industries. So looking at the social learning theory, according to this theory, ethical leaders act as role models for followers. Behaviors such as following ethical practices and taking ethical decisions are observed and consequently follow. So let me also bring in behavioral-based safety and try to look at the A of the ABCs of behavioral-based safety, like the antecedent. You understand? So whatever it is you are doing, people are observing. So you, in the course of this discussion, we are not necessarily referring to you as an individual. We are also referring you to you as an organization. You understand? Whatever ethical practice it is, you understand, or decision that is being made, people are watching, or most especially employees or some external stakeholders are watching, and they are consequently going to cue in, you understand, or support that particular value that you have in place. So if you check the behavioral, just as I said, the behavioral-based safety, which is the antecedent, or a behavior is most likely, a bad behavior is most likely most likely going to cause another bad behavior. And a positive behavior also is most likely going to cause another positive behavior. So when you are on site or when you are doing setting up some of these standard procedures, just as I said earlier, in as much as we want them to be a bit friendly, you setting them up, you the initiator also must do the same thing you are asked. Like you must practice what you preach. You understand? And do not forget, we must open our mind to say we are not discussing this thing within an individual context. We are discussing it as an organization. So look into the organization as the ethical practices or ethical decisions you are making. Make sure they are sound one, and make sure you lead by example, because people are definitely going to see what you are doing and follow whatever it is you are doing. So we have the next theory, which is the social exchange theory. For instance, now there's this saying, I would like to do to you what I would like you to do unto me. You understand? So that is what this theory is all about. The effect of ethical leadership on followers is explained by transactional exchanges between the leader and the follower. Then how transactional? It means that whatever it is I'm doing, or whatever it is you are doing as a leader in an organization, what you do to the employees or your subordinates, that would be what that will be done unto you. Then if you are an organization, how you treat your stakeholders, most especially those within the external environment, will determine also how you will be treated. The way you set up your safety management system as well will determine how the safety management system will be received, or how your organization will be received. So now, as leaders, fairness and caring for followers activate a reciprocatory process, which means I give you, you give me. It's a give and take thing. So the social exchange theory that has to do with ethical leadership is make sure whatever policies, procedures, or decisions you are taking, ensure that it should be friendly in such a way that it's something you can as well accommodate when it is sent back towards your direction. So OHS ethical leader must have what? Integrity. And just as I've always told people, what integrity stands for is for you to do the right thing when nobody is watching. That entails that you must demonstrate honesty, ethical behavior in all safety-related decisions and actions. Now, why is it very important as OHS leader to have integrity. If you check, most especially in most some of these industries we have, the temptation that is identified with OHS leadership is so huge. It's so huge. People want to pay you to compromise. People want to pay you to divert a sound decision. People want to pay you to cover up incident. People want to pay you. So without having an integrity, there is no way you can appear to be working the way it should be. And that is why integrity is very, very important. Contractors can go as far as saying, oh, let me settle you to monkey up a ladder or height to work without even using any access to that height or elevated platform. So that is the extent they can go. So it is also very key as an ethical leader to have integrity, responsibility, which is the mother of it all. Though contemporarily, you do say that workers or employees are responsible for their safety. But let me tell us, taking accountability for safety and well-being of your employees, you understand, goes a long way. Taking accountability does not mean that when somebody is not using his hazard, you're using his or her hazard, you should pick up the head protection or hazard and put it on the person's head. No. Taking accountability is by assuming your own responsibility first. Make sure the areas they need to have, the knowledge that is required of them is what they have them. But if they don't have, maybe compliance audit has shown that there is a knowledge gap, then we might need to revisit our training, like refresher training, induction, and the rest of them. So by assuming responsibility, and by assuming responsibility, we've technically taken accountability for the well-being of our employees. So thank you for us, everyone here on the call and those that do not have opportunity to join us, for you to be a sound and effective OHS leader. Some of these skills that we discussed here today is something that we must actually embrace to the latter. Thank you so much for listening. We still welcome, there's still room for question and answer. Thank you. All right, can anyone hear me, please?
Yes, please, you're audible.
Okay.
Okay, my first question, good afternoon. My question goes like this. See, hence setting following up continuous improvement in the organization and ensuring HSE policies and all the rest of them. Now, a situation where...
Sorry, I can barely hear you. I don't know. Can you speak up, please? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, very
yes. Well. I said, when setting up policies, procedures, targets, and also monitoring effectiveness of the HSE policies and all the rest of them. Okay, what the situation whereby the management support is lacking, and you are reporting only to management, or the management have not shown so much interest. At this point, what will you do?
Okay, thank you. I think if I get you correctly, I think you actually talked about your question is if there is management commitment or not, why setting up, if there is no, if you don't have that management backing, why setting up policies and procedures. But I must tell you that you cannot sit back on your own, an OHS leader. We know the hierarchy in any organization. For a management to come up and say, we should set up a policy and procedure. What we refer to as management It's not you in isolation or somebody in isolation. You understand? It's a group of top persons coming together to agree that something must be in place. Okay, let me just give you an example. You as OHS leader, you cannot go and sit back in your office and set up alcohol and smoking policy. No. And that is why you see that the managing director of most of all organizations or the CEOs endorses most of these policies and procedures with their signature. That actually is an attestation of their support and commitment to this policy. Thank you.
Again, I will get to what I'm saying.
Did I? I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, not really. See, I will tell you. Okay, in the practicality of what is being taught and what is being experienced in the field, I'll just give you a scenario. Okay, you are in a field and you are trying to stop an A practice or an anomaly. Okay, and then when you are implementing these controls, maybe someone also from top management will tell you, see, you are delaying the work, you are creating bottleneck. See, we don't need this. We are after the money because at the top echelon, they are thinking about the bottom line. Okay, how to maximize profit and all the rest of it. Now you find yourself a situation whereby you are you are not pursuing the goal, but you are not also staying back because the impression is there like the management want money, they want profit, not you creating controls which for them they are looking at it as bottleneck. So what will you do?
Thank you. I think I get you clearly now. What you are is expected of you is it depends on the management you are having because it comes in different levels. So when you have a management that understand the only language of profit maximization, and you are looking at the areas or things you want to implement some things that will actually or a control, you want to implement a control and it's going to involve them spending money and they are not willing to spend. It's the same thing I was saying. Maybe you did not get me correctly. I said the management of an organization, some management are committed to doing that. So some will tell you that, oh, okay, it's on paper, that is theory. But in practice, it's not reality. But as professionals, we don't believe that. You can always see that resistance coming from management. But there's nothing you can do. You have your limitations. But the most important thing is that it must be communicated from your area, continuous engagement. And that is why there is a room for improvement. Wherever you take it, whichever angle we looked at it from, there is continuous improvement. Because people keep setting up safety management system. Some people don't get there in a day. It takes time for them to get there. The Total, the Agip, the Shell we are seeing today started from somewhere. So you can't just go back and sit down. That is not the right thing to do. You continue to engage the management, letting them or making them see the reasons, the gains for investing in safety. So what you are saying, I understand. In practice, we do have that resistance because from experience, all of us, we've had a share of what you are saying. But some of the organizations where we started, they are not the way they were. They've stepped up their game. So as professionals, we don't go back to go and sit down. We keep pushing, you understand, to ensure that the management understand the benefit of investing in occupational health and safety. Thank you. I don't know if I've answered you this time.
Yeah, that is better. Thanks.
Okay, I want to add. Can I go ahead, please?
Thank you. All right, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I was typing that all safety and health professionals must develop safety business case skills. We must be able to develop safety business case skills to be able to prove to management the gains of investing in occupational health and safety with statistics, with figures, so that this will, and like you said, continuous engagement, it will sink into their head. It will take time, but when you are proving figures, if sanctions come, take for example, but if you have an overall weak national compliance agency, you might be getting away with a whole lot of things. But if you have a good, maybe you have a good client that enforces occupational health and safety compliance, they might want to sit tight. So over time, we will have to be engaging them, training even the management, and be taking them back to the drawing board of the business case, so that they will understand what they stand to gain and what they stand to lose if they don't comply. I think that's very, very important.
Okay, thank you. I think that is a very sound addition to what we've said earlier. So I think that has answered your question further. So thank you. So Mr. I believe okay. Mr. Kayode Fode, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sylvester, for this excellent presentation. Just to add a voice to what the last speaker said, and I think it's not uncommon for, depending on the maturity cadre that the organization belongs to, sometimes you find that as practitioners, one of the key challenges we face is the ability to be able to convince management to commit resources and resources to development of operational health and safety within the organization. And it's not uncommon for you to get resistance from management when it comes to implementation of their operational health and safety management system within the organization. But just like the last speaker said, one of the key things we must understand is that building a business case requires certain levels of skills. And I think as practitioners, we must understand that to be a leader and to be an excellent and outstanding leader, we must also focus more on not just on our technical skill, but other core areas that are very important for you to be able to drive HSE performance and be able to work with senior leadership within the organization. That is why I always call for the IOSH framework, which is called the IOSH competency framework. So as practitioners, we also need to direct our help to improve our competency. And if you look at the IOSH competency framework, it emphasizes 3 areas. One is technical competency, the other part is the core competencies, and the behavioral competencies. Now, for the technical competencies, what you find out is that most practitioners spend their time building their technical competencies, such like, for example, trying to understand health and safety regulations, understanding risk management strategy, incident management, how to build safety culture and sustainability. These are more of technical competencies. But this might not be enough when you are dealing or when you have to deal with issues within the organization. So at that point, 2 other areas might come very useful, which as practitioners, we must build those 2 other areas, which is more about our core competencies and behavioral competencies. Let me just quickly, sorry that I'm trying to spend a bit of time. So the core competencies focus more on strategy, planning, leadership, and management. So under the core competency, of course, being able to develop a safety case for safety and present that for management and be able to convince management to be able to accept whatever options you put forward to them, and also to change the management, the leadership mindset as well. You must have strategic skill and those leadership and management skill, which is very, very important. And the other behavioral competencies, as defined under the IOSH framework, is stakeholders management, communication, and be able to interpersonal relationship is also very important. So in summary, what I'm just saying is that you cannot be a true leader in safety or be able to work with senior leadership team if your core competencies and behavioral competencies are not built. That means you must be strategic in your approach. you must have strong leadership and management skill. Stakeholders management and communication and interpersonal skill must be very, very strong. Otherwise, we'll just be going around in cycles and might not be able to achieve our objective as OHS practitioner. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kayode, for that wonderful contribution. So, do we have any other questions? Okay. Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, please, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. In the absence of any further question, I think I'll hand over to my colleague, Mr. Adewale Odufuye, for those that joined us very late. They say to whom much is given, much is expected. So he introduced and handed over the session to me. So I want to hand over back to him. So thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Adewale Odufuye, it's on to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time. You really shown some level of commitment to this session, and I assure you that it was not a wasteful moment. It was a very impactful moment for everyone here. Then aside that, I just want to use the opportunity to tell you all that we've dropped our social media handles on the chat box. You can follow us on all our social media handle on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, so that we keep the conversation ongoing. This webinar is an initiative from management for a long period of time, so that you will always join us in subsequent impactful webinars like this. Then in the comments, in the chat session, we had people requesting for the presentation slide. So I'll communicate with Mr. Sylvester to make the slides available, and it will be sent via email to all participants. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day ahead. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you. God bless you.